Welcome to Sam Outside. I'm Sam and I'm outside taking an opportunity to take the weight off. Yeah, we all have days like that. Excuse me. Yeah, some days feel heavier than others. And for me, um, I never take it for granted that I have the ability and the capacity and the experience um, to use nature, take off some of that weight. So it's for me, it's a great way to decompress. All right, I know and I advocate and I share. And part of what I do as a certified forest therapy guide is to guide others through forests in nature to help promote calm, reduce stress, lower cortisol levels, reduce blood pressure, regulate heart rhythms, and help with focus, improve the quality of sleep, and just be active outside. Take moments to breathe, box breathing. Take moments to listen, smell, notice, feel, touch, and to connect. And that connection with nature is also a large part of connecting with self as well. So when I've got a day that feels a little heavier than some, I might prolong my stay. I might actively choose to navigate my way toward a specific section of forest. And for me, the power in the science really has proven that time amongst coniferous trees, evergreens, is where the best healing comes from. Um, the fact that they are evergreen, even when the rest of the forest, the deciduous forest, like the hardwood stand that's up on top of the ridge, these evergreens typically found nearer water in what we call the riparian zone. Um, they still go through the process of photosynthesis. They're actively growing throughout the winter, and they still communicate, share resources, share needs, keep in touch, if you will. And they do that on the air, when typically they would communicate through the roots, which during the winter they're frozen, so they change their language. They speak on the wind, and that is through phytoncides. That's a volatile chemical. It's a byproduct of the active photosynthesis, where the tree's own essential oils are heavier than the air, than the water vapor, and it lands on our skin, and it touches other trees, and they absorb and they communicate and they get their messages. But those phytoncides, those essential oils, those volatile chemicals, connect with our own body and connect to their own immune system. And it takes about 20 minutes before we start to really notice the effects of nature immersion as our cortisol levels drop. The sweet spot is between 20 minutes and a half hour. Of course, there are benefits of going longer, but there is a plateau, right? So on a guided forest therapy walk, it's typically 2 to 3 hours, because it does take some time to get people immersed, get into that state. So the idea is to get people out of their sympathetic state, right? That fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state, the stressed state, into the parasympathetic, right? That rest and digest and heal. So once we get the time, then we start going through a series of invitations where we can deepen the connection through sensory work, through exposure. And the curriculum does lend itself not only to connect with different aspects of a forest and nature itself, but with each other as well as humans. And of course, a one-on-one would mean myself and the participant. And that is a guided forestry experience. Basically, I'm the driver. And so, yeah, I'm just bringing people along for the ride. Now, if you're doing it on your own, that's forest bathing. All right, so you are the driver and you hold the vessel for things like timing and safety and curriculum and expectations. So there's things. So there's still part of you in your own head, which that's what makes a guided experience different. You can leave all that behind and put someone else in charge. You get to be the passenger, enjoy the view, enjoy the experience. So that is, a little bit of a way to explain the difference between forest therapy and forest bathing. One of them is guided and one of them is self-driven, if you will. So some of my days are heavier than others. Some of them, sometimes it's just the physical nature of what I do, right? So I'm exhausted that way. And so, yeah, I might not have the energy to put in the steps, but I will still navigate and find different parts of the forest to get what I need out of that and sort of reset my physical, mental, and emotional state. And hey, after a time like this, one of the added benefits of spending time in nature is the access to daylight, which, depending on what your workday looks like, you might not have as much access as others. In this fresh air and this daylight increases my serotonin levels while reducing my cortisol levels and resetting my circadian rhythm, my natural sleep-wake cycle, which will improve the quality of my sleep coming in the hours ahead. And I'm also doing a little bit for my metabolism, right? So the walk itself is not strenuous. In fact, on a guided forestry experience, as I mentioned, might be 2 to 3 hours. We're not covering a lot of ground. It might be within a kilometer, right? Depending on, the diversity in the elements or the curriculum that the guide navigates in. And yeah, it's possible to go over a couple kilometers. And of course, you can always tailor your experience with a guide in a conversation prior to, if that is a goal. So for me, I try and theme my experiences, right? So on a day like today, definitely going to notice the change of the season. So going through some parts of the forest back there toward, the southern ridge, a lot more exposure to warmth, prevailing winds, and sunlight, and a lot of that radiating heat has melted away the snow. And now I'm coming on the lee side of that hill, coming on the northeast side. There's still a lot of snow out here. Yeah, so it just changes my progress, changes my footing. So yeah, it's still navigating some snowy terrain at this time of year, but it does feel like spring. In fact, it was minus 12 this morning. I definitely wore significantly more layers, but now it's plus 10. That is a radical change in one's wardrobe. So certain considerations. So it's some of that, navigating my day through the temperature change, the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of our typical work day. And again, some of that may include time with family and friends, of course, the dog. But for me, this time in nature is a reset, right? So I'm taking off the load of what can be a heavier day, and we all have them. So if you've got a day that feels heavier than some of your others, find 10, 20 minutes in nature, take the weight off. Thank you for listening. Please go outside. It really does help. We all need it. I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.